There is a battle going on in our world today, a battle for the heart of the family, a battle for marriage, a battle for the soul of men and women. And I'm here to tell you tonight, when a woman is left alone too long without her husband by her side, she is standing in the middle of a battlefield without armor. We live in a world that glorifies independence, that tells us we don't need each other, that a woman should be fine on her own, and a man should focus only on himself. But what does that lead to? Broken homes, empty hearts, and a loneliness that no amount of entertainment, social media, or worldly pleasure can fill. There is a danger when a woman walks alone for too long. It's a danger not just of the body, but of the soul, the whispers of the world, the temptations of sin, the loss of the very bond that was meant to keep a marriage strong. All of these creep in when distance grows between a husband and his wife. And let me tell you, it is not by accident. The forces that seek to destroy marriage know this truth. If they can separate a woman from her husband, physically, emotionally, spiritually, they can weaken the foundation of the family. And if the family crumbles, the entire society begins to fall apart. Tonight, I want to warn you, but I also want to give you hope. There is a way to restore what has been lost. There is a way to fight against the loneliness, the separation, and the silent suffering. Stay with me until the end, because by the time we finish, you will know exactly how to protect yourself, your marriage, and your future. Stay with me, because this message could change your life. Would you like me to continue with the full speech? A woman without the presence of her husband faces emotional, spiritual, and social vulnerabilities. Marriage was designed to be a union, a partnership where two souls walk together, lifting each other, protecting each other, and guiding one another through the trials of life. When a woman spends extended periods alone without her husband, she is placed in a position of vulnerability, not because she is weak, but because separation was never the original design. Emotionally, the absence of a husband can lead to feelings of neglect, loneliness, and even insecurity. A woman may begin to feel unappreciated, unseen, and forgotten. The human heart was created for connection, and when that connection is broken or weakened, a void is left behind. In that void, doubts can creep in. Thoughts like, does he still love me? Am I still valuable? Why do I feel alone even though I am married? These emotions, if left unchecked, can begin to affect the way she views herself, her marriage, and her purpose. The enemy of the soul knows that an isolated heart is an easy target. When a woman is disconnected from her husband, it becomes easier for the wrong voices to influence her. Voices that plant seeds of resentment, bitterness, or even temptation. Spiritually, the danger runs even deeper. A marriage is not just an earthly contract, it is a covenant, a sacred bond established with a divine purpose. A husband and wife are meant to sharpen one another, to pray together, to strengthen each other in their faith. But when a woman is constantly alone, she may find herself spiritually weakened. Without the encouragement, accountability, and covering of a husband, it is easy for her faith to waver. She may begin to carry burdens alone that were meant to be shared. The weight of life, the struggles of the day, and the battles of the heart are not meant to be faced in isolation. A woman who is too often left to fight alone may start to grow weary, losing sight of the hope and strength that come from unity. Socially, the absence of a husband can lead to an increased risk of external influences that seek to pull a woman away from the foundation of her marriage. We live in a world filled with distractions, temptations, and deception. When a woman does not have her husband present, there is a greater chance of outside relationships forming in ways that may not be appropriate. It may begin as innocent friendships, casual conversations, or seemingly harmless interactions. But in a moment of emotional vulnerability, a door can open that was never meant to be opened. What starts as simple companionship can quickly turn into dangerous territory if a woman is not guarded against the subtle attacks on her heart. The dangers of prolonged separation between a husband and wife should not be ignored. What begins as a small crack can become a divide. What starts as a quiet distance can turn into a chasm. The emotional, spiritual, and social risks are real, and they must be addressed before they take root and grow into something destructive. When a woman is constantly alone, she is more susceptible to external temptations, influences, and negative thoughts. Human beings were not created to live in isolation, especially within the sacred bond of marriage. The absence of a husband in a woman's daily life creates an emotional and psychological void that can become a breeding ground for dangerous influences. Loneliness is not just a feeling, it is a vulnerability, a doorway through which the wrong voices and desires can enter, whispering lies that can destroy trust, love, and commitment. Temptation does not always come in obvious forms. It is subtle, creeping in through the small cracks left by distance, misunderstanding, and unmet emotional needs. A woman who spends too much time alone without her husband may begin to seek fulfillment in ways that seem innocent at first, but can lead to destructive consequences. She may turn to excessive socializing, developing friendships that pull her further away from the values of her marriage. What starts as harmless conversations can lead to deep emotional bonds with the wrong people, creating an attachment that was meant only for her husband. Emotional affairs often begin in moments of loneliness, and once the heart begins to wander, the foundation of the marriage weakens. Beyond external relationships, a woman left alone for too long is more likely to be influenced by the messages of the world rather than the principles of a strong, faithful marriage. Society constantly promotes independence to the point of separation, encouraging a mindset that says, you don't need anyone, do whatever makes you happy. While there is nothing wrong with personal growth, the danger lies in the idea that marriage is disposable, that companionship is optional, and that commitment is secondary to individual desires. Slowly, these cultural messages can shift a woman's perspective, making her question whether her marriage is truly necessary, whether her husband's presence or absence even matters. Negative thoughts also take root in solitude. Without the reassurance of a loving partner, a woman may begin to believe lies about herself, her marriage, and her worth. She may feel unnoticed, unloved, or unappreciated. The mind, when left unchecked, can create false narratives, distorting reality and making problems seem bigger than they actually are. The enemy of marriage does not attack with obvious weapons, but with subtle thoughts that whisper, you are alone, you deserve more, there is something better out there. And if those thoughts are entertained long enough, they can lead to actions that bring regret, pain, and brokenness. A woman's heart is meant to be protected, not just by her own strength, but by the loving presence of her husband. She was never designed to navigate the battles of life in solitude. When a marriage operates as it was intended, both husband and wife provide a shield against the forces that seek to divide and destroy. But when a woman is left alone too often, the shield weakens, the walls come down, and the dangers of temptation, influence, and negative thinking become far too real. A husband is meant to be a covering for his wife, providing love, support, and security. This is not about control, restriction, or domination. It is about the God-ordained role of a husband to be a source of strength and guidance. A woman was never meant to carry the burdens of life alone. She was created to be loved, cherished, and protected by her husband, just as he was created to lead, support, and nurture her. When a husband is absent, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, his wife is left vulnerable, not because she is weak, but because she was never meant to face the storms of life alone. A husband provides emotional security in a world that constantly attacks a woman's worth, value, and identity. A loving husband is a voice of affirmation and reassurance. When a woman knows she is loved, she stands with confidence. But when that voice is missing, she may begin to question her place, her beauty, and her importance. The absence of a husband's affection can leave a woman feeling abandoned, unseen, and unloved. In that emptiness, she may unknowingly seek validation from other sources, friends, social media, or even the attention of other men. It is not always intentional, but when a woman feels emotionally disconnected from her husband, she becomes more susceptible to the wrong influences. Beyond emotions, a husband also provides spiritual covering. Marriage is not just a contract, it is a covenant. And within that covenant, a husband is called to lead his wife in faith. He is to pray with her, encourage her, and help her stay strong in her spiritual journey. When a woman spends too much time alone, she may struggle to maintain her spiritual fire. Without a husband who walks beside her in faith, it becomes easier to drift. Prayers become less frequent, devotion weakens, and the distractions of the world become louder. A woman without her husband's spiritual support is like a warrior without armor, fighting battles without the strength she was meant to have beside her. A husband also serves as a protector. This is not just physical protection, but protection from harmful influences, from the pressures of society, and from anything that seeks to harm her well-being. The world is full of voices that tell a woman she should be independent to the point of isolation, that she does not need anyone to guide or guard her. But this is a dangerous deception. A woman's greatest strength is not in being alone, but in being united with the one who is called to walk beside her. When her husband is there, she has a shield, a partner who stands with her against every challenge life throws their way. When a husband is present, truly present, his wife thrives. She is confident, secure, and emotionally fulfilled. But when he is absent, whether by choice or by neglect, she is left to carry a weight that was never meant to be hers alone. And in that space, dangers arise that can threaten not just her heart, but the very foundation of their marriage. The attacks on family and marriage are not random. They are intentional, strategic, and relentless. We live in a time when the sacred bond between a husband and wife is constantly being challenged, weakened, and redefined by a world that no longer values commitment, loyalty, or faithfulness. Society promotes independence over unity, self-fulfillment over sacrifice, and temporary pleasure over lifelong devotion. The result? Broken homes, distant hearts, and a generation that no longer believes in the power of marriage. When a woman spends too much time alone without her husband, she is left exposed to these attacks, and the foundation of her marriage is placed in jeopardy. One of the most dangerous lies in today's world is that a woman does not need her husband, that she is better off standing alone, making her own decisions, and living life without the influence or leadership of a man. While independence in certain aspects is healthy, the idea that a marriage can thrive with emotional and physical separation is false. The family unit was designed to be a partnership, a stronghold where husband and wife build a life together, not a... When a woman is constantly left alone, she is more likely to adopt the world's mindset, questioning the need for her husband's presence, role, and authority in their relationship. The entertainment industry, social media, and even modern culture all play a role in attacking marriage. Movies, television shows, and online content often glorify lifestyles that encourage distance between husbands and wives. Women are told that they should prioritize personal happiness over commitment, that if they feel unfulfilled, they should walk away rather than fight for their marriage. The idea of perseverance, selflessness, and unconditional love is being replaced with convenience, temporary satisfaction, and selfish desires. When a woman is alone too often, these messages become louder, making her question whether her marriage is truly worth the effort. Beyond cultural influences, there are real spiritual forces that seek to destroy marriages. A strong marriage is a reflection of divine love, a covenant that represents faithfulness and unity. The enemy knows that when a marriage is broken, entire generations suffer. Children grow up without stability, communities lose their moral foundation, and society as a whole crumbles. The easiest way to weaken a marriage is to create division between a husband and wife, to separate them physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When a woman is constantly alone, she is more vulnerable to these attacks. And if she is not careful, the distance can turn into resentment, dissatisfaction, and eventually disconnection. This is why it is so important for husbands and wives to guard their marriage fiercely, to recognize that every moment spent apart is an opportunity for the world to pull them further away from each other. A marriage must be nurtured, protected, and fought for daily. The world will continue to attack, but those who stand firm, who refuse to let separation become a weapon against them, will find that their love, their commitment, and their unity can withstand any storm. When a woman spends too much time alone, the spiritual consequences run deep, affecting not just her emotions, but also her faith, her identity, and her relationship with her husband. The human heart was never designed for isolation. From the very beginning, man and woman were created to walk together, to support and strengthen each other. Marriage is not just a social contract, it is a divine covenant, a sacred bond meant to reflect unity, love, and faithfulness. When that unity is broken, even in subtle ways, the effects can be devastating. One of the greatest dangers of prolonged separation in marriage is spiritual drift. A woman who is alone too often may find herself gradually disconnecting from the spiritual foundation that once held her marriage together. Without a husband to pray with, to share struggles with, and to encourage her faith, she may begin to rely on her own strength instead of seeking divine guidance. Over time, spiritual complacency sets in. The passion she once had for prayer and worship may start to fade. The distractions of the world become louder, and the quiet voice of faith grows weaker. It is not always a sudden shift. It happens gradually, as loneliness replaces spiritual intimacy and distance replaces devotion. Another consequence of isolation is vulnerability to deception. When a woman is disconnected from her husband, she is more susceptible to false beliefs and worldly influences. The enemy of the soul does not attack in obvious ways. He comes in whispers, planting thoughts of dissatisfaction, temptation, and self-doubt. A woman who feels emotionally or spiritually neglected may begin to entertain thoughts that she never would have considered before. Maybe my husband doesn't truly love me. Maybe I was meant for something else. Maybe I would be happier if I followed my own path. These are the subtle lies that creep in when there is too much space between husband and wife, pulling her heart away from the very foundation that was meant to keep her strong. Spiritual loneliness also brings a deep sense of emptiness. Without the presence of a husband to share life's burdens, to offer wisdom, and to stand as a spiritual covering, a woman may begin to feel lost. She may start searching for fulfillment in other places, through friendships that pull her away from her values, through distractions that numb her loneliness, or even through unhealthy emotional attachments. The world will always offer temporary solutions, but none of them can truly fill the void left by the absence of a strong and united marriage. The weight of spiritual isolation is heavy. It creates a sense of disconnection, not just from a husband, but from faith itself. A woman who walks alone too often may start to believe that she must handle everything on her own, that she cannot rely on the strength of her marriage or the promises of faith. But this is a dangerous road, one that leads to emotional exhaustion, spiritual weakness, and a marriage that slowly fades into emptiness. A marriage thrives when both husband and wife walk together in unity, faith, and commitment. The relationship between a man and a woman was never meant to be distant or divided, but built on a foundation of love, trust, and shared purpose. When a woman spends too much time alone without her husband, cracks begin to form in that foundation. But there is hope. Marriages can be restored. Unity can be rebuilt, and the dangers of separation can be overcome if both husband and wife are willing to fight for what they vowed to protect. Restoring the God-designed relationship between husband and wife begins with intentional effort. A strong marriage does not happen by accident. It requires constant nurturing. A husband must recognize that his presence, both physically and emotionally, is vital to the health of his marriage. A wife must also understand that her heart must remain open to her husband, even when life pulls them in different directions. If both partners make it a priority to stay connected, no force in this world can separate what was meant to be united. One of the most powerful ways to restore a marriage is through communication. A woman who spends too much time alone may begin to feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. Silence between a husband and wife is dangerous because it creates a space where doubts, fears, and misunderstandings grow. When a couple commits to honest, heartfelt conversations, whether in moments of joy or struggle, their bond strengthens. A woman needs to know that her husband values her thoughts, her emotions, and her presence. And a husband needs to hear that his wife respects, loves, and supports him. Words have the power to heal, and when used with love, they can bridge even the widest gaps between two hearts. Another essential step in restoring unity is making time for each other. In a world that is constantly pulling people apart with busyness, distractions, and responsibilities, a marriage will not survive without intentional togetherness. A husband and wife must prioritize their relationship above work, above social obligations, and above anything that threatens to create distance. Whether it's through daily prayer, date nights, or simply spending time talking at the end of the day, moments of connection are what keep a marriage strong. A woman who knows her husband is present, attentive, and invested in their relationship will not fall into the dangers of isolation, temptation, or emotional detachment. Faith must also be at the center of a restored marriage. A couple that prays together stays together. A woman who is connected to her husband spiritually will find strength, peace, and guidance in their unity. When both partners seek divine wisdom for their marriage, they build a relationship that can withstand any trial. Love alone is not enough. Commitment alone is not enough. A marriage needs a foundation of faith to remain unshaken. Restoring what has been lost takes effort, but it is possible. When a husband and wife make the decision to walk together, side by side in faith and love, they protect their marriage from the dangers that come with separation. In the end, a marriage is only as strong as the commitment both husband and wife have to protect, nurture, and prioritize their relationship. A woman who spends too much time alone without her husband is placed in a position of emotional, spiritual, and social vulnerability. The dangers are real, not because she is weak, but because separation was never the design. A marriage is meant to be a partnership, a union where two souls walk together, lifting and strengthening each other through life's trials. The world will always try to pull husbands and wives apart, whispering lies of independence over unity, temporary pleasure over lifelong devotion, and personal ambition over commitment. But the truth remains, a strong marriage requires presence, intentionality, and faith. A woman needs her husband's love, protection, and spiritual leadership, just as a husband needs his wife's support, respect, and devotion. When they walk together, no force in this world can break what was divinely ordained to stand. Now is the time to protect marriage, to restore what may have been lost, and to guard against the dangers of prolonged separation. If you have felt the distance growing, if you have seen the cracks forming, make the decision today to fight for your marriage. Husbands, be present. Wives, stay connected. And together, build a marriage that stands firm, unshaken, and unbreakable in a world that seeks to tear it apart.